Oh, live from Austin, Texas, and Maynard, just about 5 miles from Austin, just about 5 miles outside of Austin. Well, we're here tonight on a Tuesday night, 7 p.m., studying the Word of Yahweh. This will be His name forever and ever. So we'll have a opening prayer and pray that my brain will be with you. Because if I'm up in the spirit realm somewhere, it won't do you any good. Hallelujah. We ask you, Father, to watch over us this evening and show us your mercy and your kindness as we study. I ask you to reveal your word to us as we read and understand what you have in your word for us tonight. We ask you, Lord, to bring us a lot of interested viewers that are watching online, and even a few visitors here tonight, if you would. That'd be wonderful. In the meantime, we just ask you to bless us and study with us. Show us your truth as we read your word tonight. Everybody say, Lord, I'm hungry.
Lord, I'm hungry.
I ask you to feed me.
I ask you to feed me.
And I'm thirsty, Lord.
I'm thirsty, Lord.
Give me living waters.
Give me living waters.
So I'll be able to stand and pour out upon everyone who's hungry.
So I stand and pour out into everybody.
Amen.
Amen.
Well, we've come a long ways. We're already in the second parsha of Exodus. Isn't that good? This is parsha number 14. God spoke to Moses, and he said to him, I am Yahweh. I appeared to Abraham, Isaac, and Yaakov as El Shaddai, although I did not make myself known to them by my name, Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, which is Yahweh. So what is El Shaddai? Any guesses?
He's the one who supplies many.
Well, El means God.
Uh-huh.
Shaddai means who is sufficient.
Sufficient, that's right.
Dayenu. Remember that from the Passover?
Yes.
Well, that song literally means it would have been sufficient for us if he had just given us his commandments, but then left us there in Egypt. You know, it was no biggie. But he didn't. He took us out, and he brought us through the wilderness, and he provided water for us from a rock and quail for us all to eat out in the middle of the desert when we were complaining about not having meat to eat.
Yeah.
So Yahweh says in verse 4, also with them I established my covenant to give them the land of Canaan. And there's the rest of our team. Hallelujah.
Looking sharp.
Thank you. Maybe we'll take a break on the class here in a minute and let Shane come and rub the kinks out of my neck. Okay, so in verse 4, Yahweh says, also with them I established my covenant to give them the land of Canaan, the land where they wandered about and lived as foreigners. Verse 5, moreover, I have heard the groaning of the people of Israel, whom the Egyptians are keeping in slavery, and I have remembered my covenant. Therefore say to the people of Israel, I am Yahweh. I will free you from the force of labor of the Egyptians, rescue you from their oppression, and redeem you with an outstretched arm and with great judgments. I will take you as my people, and I will be your God, And then you will know that I am Yahweh your God, who freed you from forced labor of the Egyptians. I will bring you to the land which I swore to give to Abraham, Isaac, and Yaakov, and I will give it to you as your inheritance. I am Yahweh. Now, up until this event, as we begin to enter into the 10 miracles that God performed in the land of Egypt, up until this time, God has never demonstrated his authority, power, and mastership of the universe. He's stood by and watched people get themselves in hot water, and occasionally, if they ask him nicely enough and correctly, he'll come in and intervene and help them a little. But he doesn't really make himself known as Yahweh. What's the difference between El Shaddai and Yahweh?
El Shaddai is God Almighty.
God who is sufficient for y'all. So what is El Shaddai?
God Almighty.
Sufficient.
Sufficient. Okay.
You don't need any other gods beside me.
Amen.
I'll take care of you. He says in verse 7, I'll take you as my people. I will be your God, and then you will know that I am Yahweh your God, who freed you from forced labor of the Egyptians. I'll bring you into the land which I swore to give to Abraham, Isaac, and Yaakov, and I will give it to you as your inheritance. I am Yahweh. So we see that God is not only the all-powerful God, but he's ready to go to work for Israel and free them from their bondage. Verse 9, Moses said this to the people of Israel, but they wouldn't listen to him because they were so discouraged and their slavery was so cruel. You ever been that way? Yahweh said to Moses, go in and tell Pharaoh, king of Egypt, to let the people of Israel leave his land. Moses said to Yahweh, look, the people of Israel haven't listened to me, so how will Pharaoh listen to me? Poor speaker that I am. But Yahweh spoke to Moses and to Aaron and gave them orders concerning both the people of Israel and Pharaoh, king of Egypt, to bring the people of Israel out of the land of Egypt. These were the heads of the families of the sons of Reuben. The firstborn of Israel were Hanuk, Palu, Hitzon, and Carmi. These were the families of Reuben. The sons of Shimon were Yemuel, Yamin, Odad, Yakin, Zachar, and Shaul, the son of Canaanite woman. So Shaul was born from a Canaanite woman. These were the families of Shimon. These are the names of, my eyes just went on a little visit. Huh? Okay, these are the names of the sons of Levi with their descendants. Gershon, Kahat, Merari, Levi lived to be 137 years old. Levi was the papa of all these. He lived to be 137 years old. It's the same way. See, it's even spelled the same with a word right above it. Levi and Levi, or Levi. Okay, the sons of Gershon were Livni, Shimi with their families. The sons of Kahat were Amram, Yitzhar, Hebron, Uziel. What's Uziel mean?
Uzi.
And what's Uzi mean? It's a machine gun in it. An Israeli style machine gun. Uzi means power. So this is the power of God. The sons of Kahat were Amram, Yitzhar, Hebron, Uziel. Kahat lived to be 133 years old. The sons of Merari were Malchi and Mushi. Mushi. That sounds like a sweetheart's name, doesn't it? Anyway.
Which one sounds like a sweetheart's name?
Mushi?
Mushi.
Oh, my.
The sons of Yitzhar were Korach, Nepheg, and Kihri. The sons of Uziel were Mishael, Elzaphan, and Sitri. Aaron married Elisheva, daughter of Aminadab, the sister of Nachson, and she bore him Nadab, Abihu, Eleazar, and Itamar. The sons of Korach were Ashir, Elkanah, and Asaph, and these were the Korach families. Eleazar, the son of Aaron, married one of the daughters of Bethuel, and she bore to him Pinchas. These were the heads of the families, heads of the family of Levi, family by family. These are the Aaron and Moses to whom Yahweh said, bring the people of Israel out of the land of Egypt, division by division, and who told Pharaoh, king of Egypt, to let the people of Israel leave Egypt. These are the same Moshe and Aaron. On the day when Yahweh spoke to Moshe in the land of Egypt, he said, I am Yahweh. Tell Pharaoh, king of Egypt, everything I say to you. Moshe answered Yahweh, look, I'm such a poor speaker that Pharaoh won't listen to me. But Adonai said to Moses, I have put you in the place of God to Pharaoh, and Aaron your brother will be your prophet. You're to say everything I order you, and Aaron your brother is to speak to Pharaoh and tell him to let the people of Israel leave his land. But I will make him hard-hearted, even though I will increase my signs and wonders in the land of Egypt. Pharaoh will not listen to you. Then I will lay my hand on Egypt and bring my armies, my people, the sons of Israel, out of the land of Egypt with great acts of judgment. Then when I stretch out my hand over Egypt and bring the people out of Israel out from among them, the Egyptians will know that I am Yahweh. Moses and Aaron did exactly what Yahweh ordered them to do. Moses was 80 years old and Aaron 83. He was 3 years older than Moshe when they spoke to Pharaoh. Yahweh said to Moshe and Aaron, when Pharaoh says to you, perform a miracle, tell Aaron to take his staff and throw it down in front of Pharaoh, so that it can become a serpent. And Moses and Aaron went into Pharaoh and did this, and as Yahweh had ordered. Aaron threw down his staff in front of Pharaoh and his servants, and it turned into a snake. But Pharaoh in turn called for the sages and sorcerers, but they too, the magicians of Egypt, did the same thing too, making use of their secret arts. Each one threw his staff down, and they turned into snakes. But Aaron's staff swallowed up their staffs. Nevertheless, Pharaoh was made hard-hearted, and he didn't listen to them as Yahweh had said would happen. Yahweh said to Moshe, Pharaoh is stubborn. He refuses to let the people go. Go to Pharaoh in the morning when he goes out to the water. Stand on the river bank and confront him. Take in your hand the staff which was turned into a snake, and say to him, Yahweh, the God of the Hebrews, sent me to you to say, let my people go, so they can worship me in the desert. Thought I missed something, but I guess not. Verse 17, so Adonai says, this is to let you know that I am Yahweh. I will take the staff in my hand and strike the water in the river, and it will be turned into blood. The fish in the river will die, the river will stink, and the Egyptians won't want to drink the water from the river. Yahweh said to Moses, say to Aaron, take your staff, which reach out your hand over the water of Egypt. over the rivers, canals, ponds, and all the reservoirs, so that they can turn into blood, and there will be blood throughout the whole land of Egypt, even in the wooden buckets and stone jars. Moses and Aaron did exactly what Yahweh had ordered. He raised the staff, and in the sight of Pharaoh, his servants, he struck the water in the river. All the water in the river was turned to blood. The fish in the river died, and the river stank so badly that the Egyptians couldn't drink its water. There was blood throughout the land of Egypt. But the magicians of Egypt did the same thing. Now I want to go to this, verse 22. It says cartoonim. Yep. Cartoonim. The cartoons of Egypt did the same thing. Yeah, well, you can do anything in a cartoon, right? So Pharaoh was made hard-hearted and didn't listen to them, as Yahweh had said would happen. Pharaoh just turned and went back to his palace without taking any of this to heart. All the Egyptians dug around the river for water to drink, because they couldn't drink the water of the river. 7 days after Yahweh had struck the river, Yahweh said to Moshe, "Go into Pharaoh and say to him, 'Here is what Yahweh says, let my people go so that they can worship me. If you refuse to let them go, I will strike all of your territory with frogs.'" That's big. How deep is the water? Really deep, really deep. Go into Pharaoh and say to him, "Here's what Yahweh says, let my people go that they can worship me. If you refuse to let them go, I will strike all your territory with frogs. The river will swarm with frogs. They will go up and enter your palace, into your bedroom, into your bed, and they will enter the houses of your servants and your people, and go into your ovens and kneading bowls. The frogs will climb all over you and your people and your servants." Yahweh said to Moses, "Say to Aaron, reach out your hand with your staff over the rivers, canals, and ponds, and cause frogs to come up on the lands of Egypt." Aaron put out his hand over the waters of Egypt, and the frogs came up over the land of Egypt. I wonder if Kermit the Frog was there. He's a big movie star, you know. But the magicians did the same thing with their secret arts and brought up frogs into the land. I wonder how that helped.
It did not help. You're about to see how it did not help.
Then Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron and said, "Intercede with Adonai to take away the frogs away from me and my people, and I will let the people go sacrifice to Yahweh." Moses said to Pharaoh, "Not only that, but you can have the honor of naming the time when I will pray for you and your servants, and your people will be rid of the frogs, both yourself and your homes, so that they may stay only in the river." He answered, "Tomorrow." And Moses says, "It'll be as you have said. And from this you will learn that Yahweh, our God, has no equal." Yeah. "The frogs will leave you in your homes, so as your servants and your people will stay and they will stay in the river only." Moses and Aaron left Pharaoh's presence, and Moshe cried unto Yahweh about the frogs he had brought on Pharaoh. Yahweh did as Moses had asked, and the frogs died in the houses and the courtyards and the fields. Oy vey. Bring a stench into your house, wouldn't it? They gathered then in heaps until the land stank. But when Pharaoh saw that he had been given some relief, he made himself hard-hearted. This time it was Pharaoh making himself hard-hearted, and would not listen to them, just as Yahweh said would happen. Yahweh said to Moses, "Say to Aaron, Reach out with your staff and strike the dust on the ground. It will become lice throughout the land of Egypt. They did it. Aaron reached out his hand with his staff and struck the dust on the ground, and there were lice on people and animals. All the dust on the ground became lice throughout the whole land of Egypt. The magicians tried with their secret arts to produce lice, but they couldn't. There were lice on people and animals. Then the magician said to Pharaoh, "This is the finger of God." But Pharaoh was made hard-hearted so that he didn't listen to them, just as Yahweh had said would happen. Okay, so we had frogs came up, and Pharaoh asked Moses to clear the frogs out, but I'm sure he asked the Kartanim of Egypt to get rid of the frogs, but they evidently couldn't do it. Isn't that interesting? Because why would he have come to Moses otherwise? Yahweh said to Moshe, "Get up early in the morning, stand before Pharaoh when he goes out to the water, and say to him, 'Here is what Yahweh says. Let my people go so they can worship me. Otherwise, if you won't let my people go, I will send swarms of insects on you and your servants and your people and your houses. And the houses of the Egyptians will be full of swarms of insects, likewise the ground they stand on. But I will set apart the land of Goshen, where my people live. No swarms of insects will be there, so that you can realize that I am Yahweh right here in the land. Yes, I will distinguish between my people and your people, and this sign will happen by tomorrow.' Yahweh did it. Terrible swarms of insects went into Pharaoh's palace and to all of his servants and houses, and the insects ruined the entire land of Egypt. Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron and said, 'Go and sacrifice to your God here in the land.' But Moses replied, 'It would be inappropriate for us to do that, because the animal we sacrifice to Yahweh our God, is an abomination to the Egyptians. Wouldn't the Egyptians stone us to death if before their very eyes we sacrifice what they consider to be an abomination? No, we will go 3 days' journey into the desert and sacrifice to Yahweh our God, as he has ordered us to do.' Pharaoh said, 'I will let you go so that you can sacrifice to Yahweh your God in the desert. Only you're not to go very far away. Intercede on my behalf.' Moses says, 'All right, I'm going to go away from you, and I will intercede with Yahweh, so that tomorrow the swarms of insects will leave Pharaoh and his servants and his people. Just make sure that Pharaoh stops playing games with the people by preventing them from going to sacrifice to Yahweh.' Moses left Pharaoh and interceded with Adonai, and Yahweh did what Moses had asked, and he removed the swarms of insects from Pharaoh and his servants and his people, and not one remained. But this time, too, Pharaoh made himself stubborn and didn't let the people go. Then Yahweh said to Moses, 'Go to Pharaoh and tell him, here's what Yahweh, the God of the Hebrews, says. Let my people go so that they can worship me, and if you refuse to let them go and persist on holding on to them, the hand of Yahweh is on your livestock in the field, on the horses, the donkeys, the camels, the cattle, and the flocks, and will make them suffer a devastating illness. But Yahweh will distinguish between Egypt's and Israel's livestock. Nothing belonging to the people of Israel will die.' Yahweh determined the exact time by saying, 'Tomorrow Yahweh will do this in the land.' But not one of the animals belonging to the people of Israel died. Pharaoh investigated and found that not even one of the animals of the people of Israel had died. Nevertheless, Pharaoh's heart remained stubborn, and he didn't let the people go. Yahweh said to Moses and Aaron, 'Take handfuls of ashes from the kiln, and let Moses throw them in the air before Pharaoh's eyes, and they will turn into fine dust all over the land of Egypt and become infected sores on men and animals throughout Egypt.' So they took ashes from a kiln, stood in front of the Pharaoh, and threw them in the air, and they became infected on sores on men and animals. The Kartanim couldn't even stand in Moses' presence because of the sores. Oh, poor magicians of Egypt. But Yahweh made Pharaoh hard-hearted so that he didn't listen to them, just as Yahweh said to Moses. Yahweh said to Moses, "Get up early in the morning and stand before Pharaoh. Say to him, here is what Yahweh says, let my people go so they can come and worship me. For this time I will inflict my plagues on you, yourself, and on your officials and your people, so that you will realize that I am without equal." In all the earth. By now I could have stretched out my hand and struck you and your people with such severe plagues that you would have been wiped off the face of the earth. But this is for the very reason that I have kept you alive, to show you my power, and so that my name may resound throughout the whole earth. Since you are still setting yourself up against my people and not letting them go, tomorrow about this time I will cause a hailstorm so heavy that Egypt had nothing like it from the day it was founded until now. Therefore send and hurry to bring Where did I go? I lost my spot.
We're doing 18. Tomorrow about this time, so it's 18.
Yeah, okay, sorry. So since you're still setting yourself up against my people and not letting them go, tomorrow about this time I will cause a hailstone so heavy Egypt has had nothing like it from the day it was founded until now. Therefore send and hurry to bring indoors all your livestock and everything else you have in the field, for hail will fall on every human being and animal left in the field who hasn't been brought home, and they will die. Whoever among Pharaoh's servants feared what Yahweh had said, and his slaves and livestock escaped into the houses. But those who had no regard for what Yahweh had said left their slaves and livestock in the field. Yahweh said to Moses, reach out your hand toward the sky so that there will be hail in all the land of Egypt, falling on the people, animals, and everything growing in the field throughout the land. Moses reached out with his staff towards the sky. Yahweh sent thunder and hail and fire raining down on the earth. Yahweh caused it to hail on the land of Egypt. It hailed, and the fire flashed up with the hail. It was terrible, worse than any hailstorm in all of Egypt since it became a nation. Through all of the land of Egypt, the hail struck in everything in the field. People and animals, the hail struck every plant growing in the field and broke every tree there. But in the land of Goshen, the people of Israel there was no hail. Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron and said unto them, this time I have sinned. Yahweh is in the right, and I and my people are in the wrong. Intercede with Yahweh, and we can't take any more of this terrible thunder and hail. I will let you go, and you will stay no longer. And Moses said to him, as soon as I have gone out of the city, I will spread out my hands to Yahweh. The thunder will end, and there won't be any more hail, so that you can know that the earth belongs to Yahweh. But you and your servants, I know you still won't fear Yahweh. The flax and the barley were ruined because the barley was ripe and the flax is in the bud. But the wheat, the buckwheat, were not ruined because they come up later. Moses went out of the city away from Pharaoh and spread out his hands to Yahweh. The thunder and hail ended, and the rain stopped pouring down on the earth. When Pharaoh saw that the rain, the hail, and the thunder had ended, he sinned still more by making himself hard-hearted, he and his servants. Pharaoh was made hard-hearted, and he didn't let the people of Israel go, just as Yahweh had said through Moses. Isn't that interesting? This is from the Haftarah, Ezekiel 28, 25 through 29, 21. Yahweh Elohim says, once I have gathered the house of Israel from the peoples among whom they were scattered, once I have shown my holiness in them as the goyim watch, then they will live in their own land which I gave to my servant Yaakov. They will have security when they live there and building houses and planting vineyards. Yes, they will live in safety once I have executed judgments against all their contemptuous neighbors, and then they will know that I am Yahweh, their God. On the 12th day of the 10th month of the 12th year, excuse me a second. Okay, on the 12th day of the 10th month of the 12th year, the word of Yahweh came to me. Human being, turn your face against Pharaoh, king of Egypt. Prophesy against him and against all Egypt, and speak out and say that Adonai Elohim, Adonai God, says, I am against you, Pharaoh, king of Egypt, you big crocodile, lying in the streams of the Nile. You say, my Nile is mine. I made it for myself. But I will put hooks in your jaws and make your Nile fish stick to your scales. Yes, I will bring you up from your Nile with all of your Nile fish sticking to your scales, and leave you in the desert. And you and all your Nile fish, you will fall into the open field and not be gathered or buried, but I will give you as food to wild animals and to birds. And then all who live in Egypt will know that I am Yahweh, because they have been a support made of straw for the house of Israel. When they grasped you in hand, you will be splintered and throw all of their shoulders out of joint. And when they lean on you, you broke and made them all wrench their backs. Therefore, Yahweh Elohim says, I will bring the sword against you and eliminate both your people and your animals, and the land of Egypt will become desolate, waste, and they will know that I am Yahweh, because he said, the Nile is mine and I made it. So I am against you and your Nile, and I will make the land of Egypt a total desolate waste, from Migdal to Shvina, and all of the way to the border of Ethiopia. No human foot will pass through it, and no animal foot will pass through it. It will be uninhabited for 40 years. Yes, I will make the land of Egypt desolate, even when compared with other desolate countries. Likewise, her cities, in the comparison with other ruined cities, they will be desolate 40 years. I will scatter the Egyptians among the nations and disperse them through the countries. For this is what Yahweh God says. At the end of 40 years, I will gather the Egyptians from the peoples where they were scattered. I will restore the fortunes of Egypt and cause them to return to the land of their origin. Pathros is the land of their origin. But there they will be humbled, a humble kingdom, the humblest of the kingdoms. It will never again dominate other nations. I will reduce them so that they may never rule again other nations. Moreover, they will no longer be a source of confidence for Israel to turn to. Rather, it will only bring to mind their guilt and having turned to them before. Then they will know that I am Yahweh God. On the first day, okay, I guess, let's see. On the first day of the first month of the 27th year, the word of Yahweh came to me. Human being, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, had his army mount a massive expedition against Sora. The loads of dirt they carried made every head bald and every shoulder raw. Yet neither he or his army derived any benefit from Sora out of this expedition against it. Therefore, Yahweh Elohim says, I give the land of Egypt to Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babel. He will carry off its riches and take its spoil and its prey, and these will be the wages for his army. I'm giving him the land of Egypt as his wages for which he worked, because they were working for me, says Yahweh Elohim. When that day comes, I will cause power to return to the house of Israel. I will enable you, Ezekiel, to open your mouth among them, and then they will know that I am Yahweh. God's got promises, doesn't he? Okay, we're going to read Romans 9:14, the Haftarah, 14 through 17. Romans 9:14 through 17. What? Oh. Well, just don't start up a big two-way conversation in there without us. Romans 9:14 through 17. So are we to say it is unjust for God to do this? Heaven forbid. For to Moses he says, I will have mercy on whom I have mercy, and I will pity whom I pity. Thus it doesn't depend on human desires or efforts, but on God who has mercy. For the Tanakh says to Pharaoh, it is for this very reason that I raised you up, so that in connection with you I might demonstrate my power, so that my name might be known throughout the world. So then he has mercy on whom he wants, and he hardens whom he wants. But you will say to me, then why does he still find fault with us? After all, who resists his will? Who are you, a mere human being, to talk back to God? Will what is formed say to him who formed it, who made me this way? Or why did you make me this way? Yeah. Or the potter, no right to make even a lump of clay, his pot for honorable use, so that one for honor and one's for dishonor. Now what if God, even though he was quite willing to demonstrate his anger and make known his power, patiently put up with people who deserved punishment and were ripe for destruction? What if he did this in order to make known the riches of his glory to those who are objects of his mercy, whom he has prepared in advance for glory? I want to skip on over to 2 Corinthians 6. Starting in verse 14, do not yoke yourselves together in a team with unbelievers. How can righteousness and lawlessness be partners? What fellowship does light have with darkness? What harmony can there be between the Messiah and Belial? And what does a believer have in common with an unbeliever? What agreement can there be between the temple of God and idols? For we are the living temple of the living God. As God said, I will house myself in them and will walk among you. I will be their God, and they will be my people. Therefore Yahweh says, go out from their midst, separate yourselves, don't even touch what is unclean rather, then I myself will receive you. In fact, I will be your father, and you will be my sons and daughters, says Yahweh Tzevaot. Therefore, my dear friends, since we have these promises, let us purify ourselves from everything that can defile either body or spirit, and strive to be completely holy out of reverence for God. Well, that's the Torah and Haftarah for this week.
Rabbi.
Yes.
So what does he mean by when he says don't touch anything unclean? And it sounds like he's talking about, separating ourselves from those who are not believers.
Yes.
So what is it specifically he's talking about unclean?
He doesn't want their uncleanness to come upon us.
So is that I know there's variations of uncleanness.
Yes. But that's what he says. What are we going to do? Argue with him?
No. But can you describe for us a little bit more about the types of uncleanness that we're not to be associating with?
Why don't you all discuss that?
Okay.
What kinds of uncleanness can you think of?
Oh. Dead body. Yeah, dead body.
Touching
dead
a dead body
animal,
makes you unclean, doesn't it?
Dead animal.
The dead in Egypt.
Right.
A dead animal.
Any animal that's died of itself is unclean.
Yep.
What about nidah?
Yeah. A woman's time. Yep. A woman's cycle. Yep. Childbearing. Then it also where it says separate yourselves from unbelievers.
Right.
Yeah.
Are unbelievers unclean?
Yeah, that don't follow the God of Abraham. Yeah.
Right.
They're into their own beliefs, and they believe themselves to be.
Okay, here's a tough one for you.
Mm-hmm.
Christians.
Yep. And
Clean or unclean?
Wow.
That is unclean to a certain point. A lot of them do believe in God and believe in Yeshua, but they're not following Torah. They're not following.
Not following Torah when you have been given the ability to, does that make you unclean?
I would think so. Yeah. I mean, you're not following the law.
Oh, but we've been cleansed by the blood of Yeshua.
Only our past sins.
That is major in Christianity.
Mm-hmm. So is that true or false? I'm going to look at something, so I'm going to put the mic down.
Not in the part where they're supposed to completely give up the law. Because the law is true today as it was then. But they don't keep the law. And they follow man-made days, made-up holidays.
There's a verse in the Bible that says that by the blood of Yeshua,
Microphone.
yeah, something like that. By the blood of Yeshua, your past sins were forgiven you. What about your future sins?
Yeah, and your present sins. Anything presently.
Yeah.
No, that's not forgiven unless you still have to repent. You still have to be repentant. I don't think a lot of people understand that. And that's the reason why some people are leaving the churches when they're starting to realize, well, that's not in the Bible anymore.
Yeah.
Why have I been following this?
Chapter and verse, please.
Yeah, chapter and verse, which is something I had to overcome, and the guy kept moving me from one church to another because I wasn't understanding, because it wasn't taught to me properly.
Well, I am pretty tired from all this reading, so I think I'm going to call this good for tonight.
Okay.
But if any of you have questions about this, if you'll email me, I'll try to remember to research it and tell you the chapter and verse where it says that only your past sins were forgiven through the blood of Yeshua, and that you have to confess those sins that you do in the future, or you won't be forgiven for it. Because in 1 John chapter 1, it says, when you sin, you confess your sin, and God is faithful and just and will forgive you and cleanse you of all unrighteousness. So there is an answer for you in the Bible, but you don't just automatically get forgiven for all sins throughout past and, well, through the present and future. You don't get to get all your future sins forgiven automatically. You have to confess them and ask His forgiveness.
Amen.
So anyway, we'll just send me a note on Ask the Rabbi, and I'll see if I can put some notes together for you for see if we can cover that a little better.
Mm-hmm.
There's also a lesson on it in the SO Day.
Yeah.
Under
Does that mean
traditions?
separating? Yeah. Does that mean separating yourself from family that are not wanting to let go of their man-made beliefs?
Well, you have to study it out and find out and let God show you what He wants you to do. That's all I can say. Yeah. Because I'm not going to get between you and God on that one.
Yeah. Oh no, I understand, but that's what happens when you. Family are the worst.
Right. I say we read the Bible and let the Bible interpret itself.
Mm-hmm. The knowledge and understanding of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, y'all enjoy this tonight?
Yeah.
Okie dokie then. Next week's going to be the conclusion of the first 10 plagues and the action of letting the people begin their exodus. So that'll be Parsha Bo, and it means to go or to come. God wants you to come with Him.
No. And boy, does He have Pharaoh kick them out. But not before they get all the gold and, what do you call it, all the gold and silver from the...
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
Well, y'all study to show yourselves to be... Study to show yourself approved unto God, a workman that needs not be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth.
Amen.
And we will hope to see you again next week.
Amen.
Shalom, shalom.
Thank you for joining us for another evening of our Torah and Customs class. We hope that you will join us again for our weekly Shabbat services as commanded from Yahweh to have a holy convocation. We begin with our 10 a.m. Bible's Issues class, followed by our main service at 11 a.m. with worship, liturgy, and another teaching. All right. Keep studying and show yourself approved unto Yahweh and be not ashamed. We shall see you again, and keep looking for more information on our website at tzine.org or contact us at 512-452-8700. Thank you. Shalom, shalom.